Welcome everyone to my preview of the Championship Playoffs 2022. Sheffield United versus Forest and Luton versus Huddersfield Town. So yeah, we've got two huge games here to talk about. The pledge is the most dramatic and also most stressful way of getting promoted. It's not what you really want. You want to try and get the automatics, but if you can't do that, this is what you have to try and do. And it makes us some great memories, or potentially really, really bad ones as well. Sheffield United versus Forest. Both games in the league were 1-1. The first game was a opening goal for Morgan Gibbs-White, cancelled out by Lewis Grabban about 5 minutes later. It was a brilliant atmosphere.
Yes! Come on!
Brilliant performance from both sides, really. And at the time, both of us were significantly lower in the table. And I do think in that game you could tell, to be honest, that those two sides were underperforming and they had the potential to rise significantly, and both of us have done.
All the more reason why we should have scored that penalty.
Yes! Come on! Come on, Yatesy!
Of course, the number one game that I think everyone would think of for this fixture in the playoffs is all the way back in 2003 when Sheffield knocked us out in the semi-finals 5-4 on aggregates when Michael Dawson got sent off. And yeah, I'm thankful that I don't remember that because I would have been 2 years old. Looking a bit more closely at Sheffield United, their recent form is pretty good. 3 wins from the last 5 against Fulham, QPR and Cardiff. A draw with Bournemouth and a very surprising defeat to Reading. However, that one defeat was the only defeat at Bramall Lane in 2022. Their playoff history is really quite abysmal, quite frankly. 7 playoff campaigns in their entire history across all leagues, and they've lost every single one. 4 of those being in the Championship, going back to 1997 and then 1998, losing the final to Palace and the semi-finals to Sunderland. The year that they knocked us out, they'd gone to lose to Wolves 3-0 in the playoff final, and then in 2009 they lost to Burnley 1-0, also in the finals. So they have had some tragic luck when it comes to playoffs. Tactically, Sheffield tend to operate very similar to Forest with a 3 at the back formation, this being Wes Foderingham in goal, Chris Basham, who recently signed a brand new contract, alongside John Egan and Jack Robinson, a former Forest player of course. The wing-backs in their last few games have been Edna Stevens and Ben Osborne. Osborne playing out on that right-hand side, which does not surprise me because that man could play up front and he could probably play in goal if he had to because he's that versatile. If it's not Ben Osborne, it'll probably be George Baldock playing there instead. On the left-hand side, maybe Reece Norrington-Davies could potentially play as well. There's plenty of options across this team. When it comes to midfield, it's pretty predictable but very strong as well. Ollie Norwood, John Fleck and Sander Berge, someone that I rate highly, especially in this division. I think Sanderberg's... Is it Sanderberg or Sanderberger? I don't remember. I know the last game, the commentator kept calling him Berger and my dad kept making jokes about burgers, which is the most rad dad thing possible, really. Let's just say Sander Berge. I think he's absolutely fantastic at this level. Billy Sharp, of course, their main man, recently has been injured. Hopefully he's still injured for this game from a Forest point of view, as well as the fact that they've got Ryan Brewster and Ollie McCleansheet, as the Sean View calls him, which I think's pretty funny, really. £20 million on Ollie McBurney. That's criminal activity right there. All of those have been injured at the same time recently. So this means that Morgan Gibbs-White has essentially been playing as a striker. Obviously, what an amazing season that he's had at Sheffield, alongside Ndiaye as well, who has been more of a bench player at times this season. But yeah, it's not ideal when 3 strikers are all injured at once. But a little bit like Forest with the injuries to Davis and Grabban, Sheffield have improvised and it's not really been affecting them. As for Forest, also 3 wins from the last 5 against Peterborough, Fulham and Swansea, a defeat to Bournemouth and a pretty insane last day draw against Hull when we scored a very late goal and then immediately conceded in typical Forest fashion, really. Also very similar to Sheffield United, we have not lost at home this year. So we have, by 1 game, got the better home record this season. But we've also got the best away record as well. It's got to be in our favour when you think of it like that. The best away record, and we haven't lost this year at home. So that's got to be in our favour. However, also very similar to Sheffield United, but this time in a very bad way, we've got a really bad record when it comes to the playoffs as well. 4 playoff campaigns in the Championship and League One, and we've lost all of them. One of those, of course, being against Sheffield, like we mentioned earlier, as well as 2 back-to-back playoff campaigns in 2010 and 11 against Blackpool and Swansea, losing both of them. Something has got to give in this tie. Neither of us tend to lose in our own backyard, and we've also got really bad playoff records, so at least one of us has got to break that hoodoo to get to the final this time. Obviously, our manager Steve Cooper has been part of the playoffs the last 2 seasons with Swansea, but losing to Brentford both times. So on a personal level, I think Cooper is going to be hoping it is third time lucky, really, for him. Of course, the team news for us, really, we're all praying and hoping that Keenan Davis is available. However, Steve Cooper has already said that probably won't happen. We're not going to believe what Cooper says until we see the team sheet, because how many times has he said that a player is out for 6 weeks and they come back after a week? Injuries to Steve Cook, Jack Colback and Ryan Yates from the last game. It was also down to squad rotation, but it was also precaution as well. Cook is available for this one. Colback and Yates, it is 50-50, but it's most likely that they will be able to play, which we really need them available. We can't afford, especially, to have Yates out. With all being well, our starting 11 will look a little bit like this. Bruce Samba in net with Colback and Spence as wing-backs, with the Great Wall of Nottingham behind them, Scott McKenna, Steve Cook and Joe Wall. Ryan Yates and Jimmy Garner in midfield with Zinkernagel ahead of them, and then Brennan Johnson and Sam Surridge up front. It's still a very, very strong side. 2 very strong sides going up against each other. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens in this one. My prediction at Bramwell Lane, I believe it's going to be a draw. Whether it's 0-0, it could be another 1-1, it could be 2-2 maybe. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring though. I think it's going to be another very, very tightly contested affair. But I do think it's going to be decided at the City Ground. It's a fair place to go, so I'm going to back the boys. I think we'll get it done at the City Ground and we'll go through to the playoff final. And then I'm bricking it, quite frankly. But let's wait and see what happens. Let's talk about Luton Town versus Huddersfield though. This is a interesting fixture as well when you compare how much Forest and Sheffield have played each other down the years. These two have played each other significantly less. Sheffield and Forest have played each other 128 times in their entire history. Luton and Huddersfield have played each other 28 times in their entire history. So that's 100 games less. Luton's form, again, is also 3 wins from the last 5. Wins against Reading, Cardiff and Forest. We do not talk about that Forest one as much as we possibly can. A draw with Blackpool and a 7-0 defeat to Fulham, but I don't really know how much you can read into that because it is Fulham. Luton's playoff record is also horrendous. 5 playoff campaigns, they've lost all 5 of them. They lost one in League 2 to Blackpool, 3 straight years in the National League between 2010 and 2012, as well as a 1997 playoff defeat as well. So they have got a dreadful record in the playoffs too. Unsurprisingly, it's the first time ever this team is participating at this level in the Championship playoffs, with a squad worth just over £1 million. It is truly unbelievable that they've got to this stage when you realise that in 2018, they were in League 2. Forest have injuries and so does Sheffield United, but Luton have quite a few, and what really isn't ideal for them is quite a few in midfield really. They've got Luke Berry and Pelly Ruddock injured, Fred Odeniema, and the biggest one of all really is Adebayo, who's their top scorer this season with 17 goals. A bit like Keenan Davis, a bully up front, you don't really want to mess with him. If he's out injured, that isn't ideal really, and it's got to be, again, something that does go in Huddersfield's favour. And I think another thing that you probably do sway towards Huddersfield is the fact that Luton's first game is at home. I think if the second game was at Kenilworth Road, it probably would favour them more, because that home atmosphere can be absolutely vital if you're chasing a lead. However, it's not all completely lost for Luton. It's still a good team that they can put out. Matt Ingram in goal, having came in on an emergency transfer from Hull because they've got Chris O'Shea and Jed Steer, who they signed in January because of injuries. He's now also injured. A back 3 again for Luton this time. Carl Naismith, Sonny Bradley and Reece Burke would normally be the back three that they play. Carl Naismith, a set-piece taker, and has had an excellent season at the back for Luton. Wing-backs of Amari Bell and James Bree, two great signings in the summer. This is up for debate really with the injuries to Berry and Ruddock, but the midfield could look a little bit like this. Henry Lansbury playing as a holding midfielder like he did against Reading. That might change. He can play further ahead of that. Anna Campbell and then Jordan Clark. If it's not Jordan Clark, you could play Robert Snodgrass and bring Lansbury further up and then make Snodgrass more of an advanced playmaker, or could even be Anna Campbell, really. So there's quite a lot of different formations that they could play in midfield. And then again, with the injury to Adebayo, Cameron Jerome may be at the end of his career really, but what a huge amount of experience he can offer at this level. And it isn't like they rely on just Adebayo just for goals when you realise that Harry Cornick has got 13 goals this season as well, and he can operate on the wings, so he's versatile, which is always good in a player really, isn't it? If we take a closer look at Huddersfield, they're actually in the best form. 4 wins out of the last 5 against Bristol City, Coventry, Barnsley and Middlesbrough, and a draw to QPR. So at least in the last 5 games, they do have the upper hand on all 4 teams here. And as well, when you realise the playoff record, 10 playoff campaigns they've been in across all the divisions, across their entire history, but only one of them being in the Championship before now. And that, of course, was in 2017 when they famously won the Championship playoffs without scoring an actual goal against Sheffield Wednesday and Reading. So that means that Huddersfield are the only team here to have won a playoff campaign in their entire history. So based off of that, Huddersfield probably are the favourites. And unlike the other 3 teams, Huddersfield do not tend to stick to the same formation. They do play 3 at the back, but they can also play 4 at the back, and also the personnel can be changed up as well. It may not be Lees, Colwell and Pearson at the back 3. Sometimes Jonathan Hogg has dropped back into centre back. Ollie Turnton, who's more of a full back, has played there as well. And you've also got Naby Sarr. So there's lots of different formations, or at least, combinations that Huddersfield can play in that back 3. This, of course, in front of Lee Nichols, Championship goalkeeper of the season. An amazing story when you realise that he was at MK Dons last season on the bench, and now he's in this situation. So fair play to him for that. The wing backs, again, it might not necessarily be wing backs, it most likely will be Harry Toffolo, who is in fine form. And saying he's a left back, he scored 6 goals this season, but 5 of them in the last 7 matches. Right back is also up for debate whether it's Ollie Turnton or Pieper. He might play there if Turnton is used as a centre-back. Lewis O'Brien recently has been injured, but he should be available for this game, so all but certainly he would be starting. He has been fantastic for Huddersfield this season. Him or maybe Scott High could play instead of him if he doesn't, but it would most likely be a partnership of O'Brien and Jonathan Hogg. And then you've got Daniel Sinani, who can play pretty much anywhere across the attack on loan from Norwich. The rest of the attack will probably look a little bit like this. Dwayne Holmes, Sorban Thomas and Danny Ward. Danny Ward being the top scorer this season with 14 goals. You've also got Josh Koroma as well. So there's plenty of combinations that Huddersfield could play in this attack. And I have to say, it's a very, very good looking team, this. I think all these teams deserve to be here. But obviously, I'm gonna sway towards Forest, of course, but I do think Huddersfield have got a fantastic opportunity here. My prediction for Luton versus Huddersfield, I am probably going to back Huddersfield for this one. I'm not going to completely write off Luton. I think they have got a chance. But when you realise that in the league, it was a goalless draw at Kenilworth Road and a 2-0 win at Huddersfield's ground, you probably would sway towards Huddersfield when you just look at it like that. And the 2-0 win was only about a month ago as well. So I probably would edge Huddersfield here. If you have enjoyed this, please hit the like button, subscribe to Rads if you're new. Hopefully this video has offered you quite a bit of insight on what to expect over the next few weeks, particularly the next few days, with the finals at the end of the month, of course. Please, of course, follow my Twitter and Instagram. They are links in the description below for any updates and just general waffle over there. My reaction for both games between Sheffield and Forest will be out on the channel, of course, over the next few days. The away game probably Saturday evening or maybe Sunday morning. And then, of course, I'll be at the second leg, which I'm really, really excited for. especially if it's a good result at Bramwell Lane. That'll probably be out Wednesday. So look forward to that, everyone, and I'll see you very soon.